Starting on August the 1st, members of the Green Party of England and Wales will be voting to elect a new deputy leader. Now, this is a really important moment for the party. It's the first election for a deputy leader in a decade where there hasn't been an incumbent in the running. Now, Amelia Womack has been the deputy leader of the party for the past 8 years and is not standing this time around. So it's a complete open field with 4 candidates standing. And today I'm joined by one of those candidates. But before I introduce them, I just have one thing to ask of you, which is to scroll down right now and hit that subscribe button. It means that you won't miss out on any of the other interviews we're putting out with the other deputy leadership election candidates or any of the other videos we're putting out in the coming weeks and months. So hit subscribe and you won't miss out on anything. Now, without further ado, I'll introduce our candidate that we have with us today. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Tyrone Scott. Tyrone, how are you doing?
Thanks. Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm good. I'm hot. Suffering a little bit in our heat wave. That's only going to get worse the next couple of days, and probably quite timely for this conversation because it really shows the importance that we are the ones trying to fight and secure climate justice. But on a personal level, I'm doing okay. A bit hot, a little bit tired. Not sure if it's a campaign or the heat or whatever it is, but I'm good still. Thank you.
Definitely empathize with all of that, and I'm sure many of our viewers can as well. So to kick things off, what do you think you offer as a deputy leadership candidate that none of the other candidates can offer?
That's a really good question. So me personally, I think I bring something completely different to the Green Party of England and Wales as a deputy. I think I firstly can appeal and open up new audiences for us as a party. I can bring in new activists to this party and I can inspire a new generation of Green activists to get out and get Greens elected. And I think that is something that is unique to myself. And in no way a disparaging comment to the other candidates, but I do feel that I have that ability to try and successfully get people to join our party and galvanize them to want to get involved. You know, I am a committed activist, committed grassroots activist. You know, that's what I am at heart, and that's what I generally look to commit my life to. And again, I think that's a differentiation as well. I love spending my time on the ground with people, with communities, building and sharing power. You know, that is all I am about. And yeah, I think that is the uniqueness. That's all I've spoken about, maybe sometimes too much in my hostings responses, but that is really, really key for me. You know, I'm absolutely happy to do media appearances. I think I'm a competent media performer, and I can speak about difficult conversation and have debates and present our message and our positive message on any platform given. But my priority is groundwork, grassroots activism, and grassroots campaigning, and helping people secure local social justice on that local level and improve their daily lives, you know, and that is just my focus. And by doing that, I feel we'll get more Greens elected and get more people to want to join the party. So I guess in a concise-ish way, that would be my answer.
So you mentioned there a central plank of that being getting more Greens elected. And you also said earlier when we first started chatting about that we're living at the moment at in an unprecedented heat wave. We're recording this on Sunday the 17th. On Monday and Tuesday, it looks likely that records will be broken in the UK for the highest temperatures we've ever seen recorded. Now, a lot of people will be watching this, a lot of members of the Green Party will be watching this, and they'll be thinking, we're facing this climate crisis. Climate has never been higher up the agenda in terms of the fact that we're experiencing more and more of these extreme weather events. We just, you know, a few months ago had the climate negotiations at COP26 in Glasgow, and they'll be thinking, we really, really, really need to get a grip on this crisis in this country. And one way that many members see that happening is by getting more people elected who are Greens, because that's, you know, we're a political party. That's a kind of central plank of what we do. So for you, what does electoral success look like for the Green Party in the next 5 years?
Great, thank you. It's a really good question. And just to address maybe the first part before the second bit, you know, absolutely experience more extreme weather events, and it's only going to get worse, and it's a really big concern. And we can see now with the way that in fact, both the major political parties who are vying for power at the moment aren't really adequately addressing this. Both the Labour Party, who, you know, their leader ran on a platform of securing a Green New Deal and running on green initiatives, and seems to have forgotten that platform completely. And we have Tory candidates who, okay, now a couple of them are starting to have to say something because it's so hot outside, but who really are going to get rid of their climate policies, or at least not strengthen them or further them, you know. So it's a massive, massive concern. We have the heat wave now, which still I get concerned isn't in some quarters maybe being taken seriously enough as a, oh, you know, just get down to the beach, it's fine, you know, and it's not the case. I don't think we're getting the appropriate guidance from government about how people can generally take care of themselves and keep themselves, in some cases, alive during the next 2 days, you know. So it is incredibly serious. And I think it's so important that as a Green Party, we are in elected positions so we can try and make the change, because we can see that no one else is going to make that change for us. You know, very, very slowly, other parties start speaking about climate change, or, you know, make faux commitments, but we're the ones who would actually take real action. And, you know, as my tagline in my campaign, we'll take action that does speak louder than words. So for me, electoral success over the next 5 years is having Greens in elected positions, continuing to get Greens in more elected positions so we can make those changes. So on a local level, we're doing absolutely fantastically at the moment already, and have done the last 2 years. And that momentum that's going to continue to grow is going to get us more, I guess, power within local councils to be able to make the change we want, to declare the climate emergencies, to make real changes on a local level that will make a big difference. But on a national level, we do need more MPs to get elected. There's no reason right now. I know we have an incredibly backwards electoral system, you know, maybe we'll speak about this later on in the interview, but, you know, we know we need to make votes matter. We know we need proportional representation, or at the very least away from our first past the post system. So yes, these things do hold us back as a Green Party, but that is not enough. Essentially, we are living in a massive ecological emergency. Everybody can see that, and everyone's speaking about that. We have climate activism bringing this to the forefront, and a lot of people wanting to take positive climate action, yet that doesn't seem to translate in people joining the Green Party and getting Greens elected. And we need to figure out why that is. There's no reason why we should not be able to get 5 MPs in 5 years' time and have 5 MPs there. The time for the Green Party is now. You know, what really frustrates me and worries me about the situation is eventually the country will see the time is for the Green Party, because things will get so bad. But how many more of these summons will we have before people realize, oh, actually now is the time to vote Green? You know, we need to show that the time is really now. So my biggest fear is not that we won't ever, you know, be in some form of government and have a plethora of MPs in there making a real big difference. I am very sure we will. My concern is that it will be when people go, oh, we have to do it now, and it's far too late, because we have to do it now, we have to do it yesterday. So we need to emphasize that to people. And yeah, I think we should have 5 MPs at the least, and I think we can do that as well.
So a lot of what you said will be familiar to a lot of people watching, a lot of Green Party members. I've been sort of covering Green Party leadership and deputy leadership elections for nearly a decade now. And I think pretty much every single candidate for leader or deputy has said that they will be the person who will be able to deliver more Green MPs. And yet in 2015, in 2017, in 2019, all those general elections, the Greens fell short every single time of getting anyone other than Caroline Lucas in Parliament. So why are you the right person to make that breakthrough and get more Greens elected?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really good point. You know, we sometimes speak about, you know, the Green surges we've had in the past, you know, the times when we've had more people join the party than ever before. We got, you know, over 1 million votes and things, and absolutely fantastic. But at some point, by speaking about these things, you know, that happened 5-6 years ago, it almost puts a spotlight on ourselves and saying, well, what do we do with that momentum? You know, why hasn't that been carried forward? Why hasn't that translated into our party growing to constantly growing in that same momentum and getting Greens elected? So the concern that we've not been able to really build in that moment and turn that into a movement, you know, and I think that's one of the really, really important things, is really understanding that what we have to do is build a movement, build a green movement, and work to what I've said in my opening statement, building a green revolution to make that change, you know. And I understand movement building. That's what I do for a living, and that is essentially the essence of how I'm looking to try and build my career. And that's what we really have to understand the essence of, you know, is not just moments. That was a massive moment in 2015, you know, and we didn't really do a good enough job of turning that into a movement. And sometimes I think when we hark back to that as a success, I'm starting to think, is that really a massive success if we've not built on that, you know? And I think I can build that movement. I think I can galvanize people. I can show the public the Green Party wants to do things differently, and we are doing politics differently. Now, I think I've mentioned before in the hustings, we get our taglines and emails constantly say, we do politics differently in the Green Party, and I see it on my inbox all the time. But what do people see that, you know, do people really see that in the public and see that we're doing politics differently? Like, again, I'm not here to say anything around any of the candidates, you know, because everyone's, you know, a strong candidate in their own right. But I feel if I was elected as deputy leader of the Green Party tomorrow, it will make people sit up and look at us and go, hey, what's going on over here? You know, because this is different, this is new, he's different, he's new. I'm an activist, I'm on the ground. People now take urgent action on climate change and climate chaos. And it's a breath of fresh air. You know, I would put that work in on the ground. I will get myself about. And even now, I mean, I have such a manufactured platform that I've created myself, which is small compared to even many of the people within the Green Party, you know, but I'm very, very proud of the platform that I've constructed for myself. And I've used that platform already to try and help the Green Party to grow. I've been recognized as a young climate activist in various publications. I was in a children's book for 30 inspiring young Black climate activists from around the world last year. And I had my manager from work come up to me saying, oh, my daughter saw you in a book yesterday and was asking me about the Green Party, you know, and that is what I bring. You know, not about tooting my own horn or anything, obviously, anything like that, but I've had the feedback, I've had that connection with people on the ground, and I believe I inspire a different type of activist to join the Green Party. We always talk about how we need to break new ground and reach different audiences, and I believe I break ground and I reach different audiences, and I believe I'm a visual representation of different audiences too. And whilst that's not what I'm running my ticket on, it's very important still to note, you know, we as a Green Party we bastions of social justice, of racial justice. We talk about shortening the widening inequality gap and be representative of the society that we want to help build, you know, and to do that, and to show that, having somebody like me as the deputy leader reflects that, you know, and having a party that would put faith in somebody like me, somebody who people don't put faith in often, and the fact to fight and struggle for every single thing that I have, to be having this conversation with you today. If the Green Party and the electorate were to put their faith in me, people would see that as well. And you know, I think that really could make a big bit of difference. So, you know, I'm very confident that at one point in the future, I will be in a leadership position within this party, and I will try and help, because I'm so committed to the Green Party and getting Greens elected and stopping climate chaos, but also securing social justice. But I don't want the time to come when it's, you know, again, that too late. I think right now is a time for me, it's a time for the Green Party, it's time for someone to get in there and galvanize crowds, galvanize activists, and get people to want to get involved, want to knock doors, and want to get Greens elected.
So there's a lot of things in there that I want to talk about in a few other questions. I'll start at the end though. So in your candidate statement and in a lot of the sort of comments you've been putting out in hustings and your campaign platform, you've been talking a lot about racial justice, and you mentioned that quite extensively there. You've also elsewhere written and talked about, you know, racism in the climate movement, and the Green Party generally has received often very legitimate criticism for being too white, for not taking race issues seriously. And sometimes, for example, when it talks about the climate crisis, talking about, for example, the impacts in the UK in several years or decades in the future, and not the impacts that people in the global south, for example, are feeling right now. How do you think the Green Party ought to be talking about racial justice in the context of the climate crisis? And how do you think that it can start to tackle its own problems with regards to, you know, representation and racial discrimination within the party?
Yeah, really important questions, and probably quite a lot I could say about this, to be honest. But if we look internally, it's about working out why, and actually really trying to make a concerted effort to do something about it, and not trying to think these things will resolve themselves. You know, if I were to get elected as deputy leader of the Green Party in, you know, 6 weeks' time, it will be in spite, you know, of the challenges that I've had. It won't be because of the, you know, I love the party and that's why I'm here to do it, but it won't be because the party have helped me build a platform in that sense, or, you know, try to give that support in that sense, or concerned effort to go, actually, as a person of colour here from a marginalised community we don't have enough representation from, what can we do as a party to support them to try and grow and get elected either into leadership positions or externally, you know? And I've not had any active discouragement or anything that is, you know, to anyone trying to actively put any barriers in my place. But I don't believe there's been any concerned effort to take those barriers away or understand what those barriers are. And I think sometimes we do maybe expect these things to sort themselves out. You know, I think we need to, and we've just had our Diverse Matters report, which is an important start, but it needs to be a real effort and work put in there to change representation, you know, and sometimes it means putting policies in place putting the right support packages in place and making an effort to having goals. We want to get a certain amount of people from a certain demographic or marginalized community in these elected positions. How are we going to get there? How are we going to plan this out? I don't see anything like this right now at all. And there is support for candidates of color. We have things like the DECA fund, which is a brilliant fund that you can apply for if you need support. But that was created because of an incredibly generous donation from a member who passed who was a person of color. That wasn't a fund created from an internal Green Party thinking, right, we don't have enough people of color elected internally or externally, let's create this fund so we can try and enable it. Because obviously, because of institutional and structural racism, unfortunately, people of color are more likely to be living in poverty. It's just a sad fact of it is. So as a Green Party, we speak about these things very publicly in social justice and the inequality and the widening inequality and the racial justice. But yet internally, what are we doing to combat that in ourselves? And what structures are there that are making it really, really difficult for people like myself to get into these positions? And like I said, I really don't want to de-emphasize like the difficulties has been for even myself, with the concurrent election campaigns, putting things like your career on hold a little bit and not giving it the concentration that it should be, putting yourself in financial difficulties to pursuing your aims with the Green Party. It's no secret I've spent a lot of my time dedicated to the Greens over the last 4 or 5 years. I've been a member for 8 years, but first few probably a bit more chilling. But a lot of my time, whether it's serving on the Young Greens for the time I did, working with the Federation of Young European Greens, running for election countless times, supporting election campaigns, all of these things, and as we all know as activists, you don't get paid a penny for these things all this time. My friends think I'm mad, but I'm doing this because I have a cause that I believe in, and this is what I want to do. But it's not because it's been enabled by the party to say, hey, there's someone here, person of color, marginalized community, who's really trying to secure social justice and help us get more Greens elected. What can we do, really actually do to support that? And that doesn't exist, I'm afraid. And that needs to change. And that's one thing I would absolutely certainly change, because these things will not solve themselves at all, and I just, it's really, really frustrating. I almost didn't run for deputy leader, this time. And I was going to, by not running, almost make a statement, put it out there and say I couldn't run because I just can't run. I just can't, like, I can't take time off work. I can't take a day. I can't reduce one day a week just to concentrate on the campaign. I can't afford to get a video made. Luckily I've got a friend who's a video maker who's sorted me out, and things like that. So yeah, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And that should be emphasized a lot and continually. So it's tough and there's work to be done. In regard to externally and the way we speak about climate change or race, absolutely, or the climate catastrophe, however we reference it, I get really, really frustrated, with a lot of the climate movement in general, and the Green Party can't make those same mistakes of speaking about this as if it's a Western issue only, and also maybe forgetting how these things started in the first place. But, right now, countries in the global south, say right now, they have been for time as well. I've been suffering the awful consequences of climate chaos, severe heat, much more than we're experiencing now, severe droughts, having to flee their countries. People will be fleeing their homes today because of climate change. So we can't talk about how we need to act because in 5 years it'll be too late. What does that mean? 5 years is too late for who? Because it's too late for people right now. So, it's like climate colonialism in a sense, speaking in these terms. We've got to be better as a party. I'm very proud that, I helped both co-write and get and propose the groundbreaking policy for reparations and atonement for the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans, which is also for the genocide and the ecocide of their lands, and it's a massive step forward. But again, we passed that policy. I didn't see our leaders talking about that policy. I will talk about that policy because it's important, So this is what I mean. Are we outwardly reflecting the values that we talk about, So really good question, and I'm glad you asked it.
So just to jump back to one of the things you talked about in your previous response, one of the areas that you have spoken quite extensively about in hustings and in your candidate statement and your platform, and indeed at the start of this conversation, is around community organising and moving the Green Party towards a model of community organising as part of its work. What do you mean by community organising, and how would that differ as an approach to what the Green Party is currently doing?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's not necessarily massively different from a lot of what the Green Party is already doing. We have effective local and regional parties who do really good jobs of building power in the local communities, organising communities, identifying leaders to build in their communities. and finding and achieving success. So I want to build on what's already happening fantastically. But it's really about fully embedding yourselves within communities, you know, and understanding their issues properly, identifying leaders in those communities, and also speaking to them around maybe issues through a different way. And we don't want to we want to get Greens elected, and that's our aim, obviously. But if we sort of have that clear agenda when we're in communities, they'll sort of see through that in a sense, you know, but really embedding yourself in that community, finding, you know, helping bring power, give power and share power, helping fight for social justice with various people within the community, genuinely, then people would believe in you and would look to vote for you. But if you sort of having that clear agenda and it's just real community level work, rather than just being in the community to seek votes, and that differentiation I think is quite important. You know, we saw success in Dalston recently. I was elected, but you know, my good friend Zoe, and one of the reasons she was elected was because she's been in that community, embedded for the last 3-4 years, part of all sorts of community groups, you know, volunteering at the various bike projects, everything. I'm not doing that as I'm here to get your votes and I'm here to Green Party. It's like, I'm here as Zoe, you know, and I'm embedded myself in the community and I want to do positive things to the community. And then, you know, 2 or 3 years later, the elections come up and you see that person, you think, well, that's the person I believe in because they've done things for me and they've worked for me, and they didn't do that and didn't seem like they're doing that with sort of an agenda, because it's genuine. And that's what I like to think. We aren't doing this with an agenda. Obviously, we want to get Greens elected because we know that's how we're going to be able to secure the justice that we need. But I want to support my community, you know, and I know that the local Green parties want to support their communities too. So it's about really ensuring that practice is held, and that's what we focus on. And I think that even one of the similar things with the hustings, you know, there's a lot of talk around, you know, some appearances on various news channels or people's opinions on appearances in those news channels, and the importance of, you know, breaking through to different audiences by going on, you know, whatever right-wing platform it might be. And yeah, important as that might be, but, you know, we change hearts and minds through activism, through the doorstep, through looking to work with people and improve their lives, listening to what their issues are, really listening to what their issues are and helping them, work with them, trying to co-produce policies for change. You know, these things is what will win hearts and minds. Even of the most, what could be perceived as, you know, right-wing Brexiteer person or whatever it might be that we think would never vote for us. They will vote for us if we're in their community and we're making their life better. You know, that's it, you know. So yeah, my focus isn't about let's get on all the news channels across the political spectrum and therefore people listen to us. I don't think you win. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, you know, I think we're not going to win for elections just from great TV performances or winning a TV debate. You know, the people on the ground want their lives to be improved, basically. You know, they want to be able to deal with this cost of living crisis. They don't want impending climate crisis that's going to continue to get worse in 10 years' time. And, you know, they want to feel equal, you know, and equitable in the lives and within their communities. So if we bring that to people on a ground level, that's how we'll make change, you know. So I'm not going to say I'm not about being on the media. I'll get on the media, you know, if I'm asked tomorrow. It's fun, to be honest with you. I enjoy it. But that's not where my focus will be. And if that's where people want the focus to be, then absolutely fine. You know, there's a different ticket there. But I think we've got 2 great leaders who do good jobs being on television and stuff, you know. Get me there on the ground, inspiring activists, and it will work, you know.
So I'm going to move on a little bit and I guess talk about the Green Party strategy slightly more broadly. And you know, political parties, they that are successful, they build effective social coalitions of different groups of people, different demographics, people with different interests in society, in order to, you know, represent those people and to you know, build support for a platform of change, whatever that platform is. So, you know, look at the Tories, look at the Labour Party, they have very clear kind of social coalitions. And if you look at the 2019 general election, what you can see is that the Labour Party's social coalition collapsed and the Tories took advantage of that. At the moment, the Greens, you know, when in sort of national elections, when we're getting sort of, you know, between 1% and 4% of the vote, there's, you know, a very small social coalition there. What do you think the social coalition that we should be pulling together in order to deliver the electoral success that we want to see should be?
For me, I think it's really, really important that, well, I think there's a lot of people who are just lost without a political home right now. You know, in 2019, obviously we saw what happened in the Labour Party, but you had a movement of socialists who very almost got, you know, got themselves a socialist prime minister. millions of people. We saw the wave of support for those socialist policies, the wave of support for what was, to be fair, looking to try to do politics a little bit differently to maybe the way it's been done before. I had definitely had my own issues, and there's a reason why I didn't join the Labour Party in 2019. But there were certain things that were similarities, I guess, in essence. And I think people want socialist policies and socialist values, at least a massive portion of the people, and they are feeling abandoned right now because of what you just rightly described, the whole Middle Englanders, and the Tory party's success with that. The Labour Party are just simply trying to replicate that. They're forgetting about the life and blood of their own parties. I mean, we saw their hesitation to back striking workers, and it's like that for me. I mean, if the Labour Party is not going to stand up for workers, who will? That I just find that awful, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, Labour Party are in a position of power. They've got a responsibility as an opposition. As much as we want to do, we don't have that power and influence that the Labour Party do. So they've got responsibility with that power, and they are failing in that responsibility right now. They're failing to stand up for workers. They're failing to adequately stand up. Oh, sorry, my laptop's gone. They're failing to adequately stand up for migrants and refugees, asylum seekers, and all of those who are trying to seek refuge from the awful situations they've had, often perpetuated by policies and foreign policies within our own country and within our own lands, never mind the climate chaos we've also put on much of the world. So they're failing to do that too. Who's standing up for the people? I don't really know who. We are now with a Labour Party that are talking about, all they talk about is the economy again. The economy is very, 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 very important. But they're just thinking that's what we have to talk about because the Tories get in by speaking about conservative values like the economy constantly. So that's all I'll talk about as well. Who's there to talk about workers? Who's there to stand up for socialist values? Who's there to stand up for public control, public ownership, and putting the power back to the people? Nobody, And if we show people that we are that political home for people, we are a bit more radical. We are proudly left-wing, and I think we are proudly eco-socialist, or I will be anyway. Then people will listen. I don't think we can underestimate that void that exists right now. We can fill that void. I want to proudly shout that we will fill that void for people. And this isn't, I know some of this can be anecdotal, but we, just in the circles we live in, we know socialists, we know members of the Labour Party, and we know their frustrations over the last 2 or 3 years now when they see either potentially Tory light sometimes, or harking back maybe towards New Labour. At the very least, they've decided to do the absolute opposite of what happened in 2019 because they were so scared of, the vitriol that was received. So all these people are politically homeless. I don't want to, that's exactly who I think we should be aiming for.
So I'm going to look a little bit internally at the party now. At the moment, there's the last 3 leadership elections. One issue has dominated a lot of the conversation, which is the issue of transphobia in the Green Party. And it's obviously worth noting that, this is taking place in a context where if you look at, the wider political discourse, it's absolutely dominated by rhetoric and narratives, and in some instances, policies that is intending to demonize trans people and weaponize trans lives in a culture war. I mean, you just have to look at the last 2 days where, we have a leading candidate for the Tory leadership, and the one issue that they're trying to undermine her on, Penny Mordaunt I'm talking about, has been her supposed previous support for trans rights, and that's the issue that the right-wing press and the Tories are going on. Now, in our own party, some of that wider context of transphobia and anti-LGBT campaigning has, infected some parts of our party. As deputy leader, what would you do to tackle the issues of transphobia we're facing right now?
Thanks, Chris. Again, a really important question. Sometimes it can be a bit frustrating, I'd say, even to talk about these issues over and over again, but they're so important issues to talk about. And whilst it might be frustrating for me, I really feel sorry for everybody within the trans community who's having to deal with this rhetoric, not obviously just the last few years, but unfortunately it has dominated some of our hustings and some of our discourse we've had, in not the most positive way. Like you said, the leadership election right now within the Tories, again, it's becoming the sort of the what people trying to politically win points over and point score over, and lost in all that is the people, all the people who are being spoken about as if they're just nothing, and it must be very, very, very difficult. So yeah, I feel sorry about that, and I just don't think it's fair at all, to have to just almost like fight for your existence on a daily level. You know, at the most fundamental level, you know, you just want to exist, you know, and if that's being taken away from you, how do you build anywhere else from that, if even at the fundamental level you're just trying to prove your existence and your validity as a human being? So I just think it's awful, and I'm really saddened that this discourse is heightened again now, you know, because like you said, we have been having this conversation internally the last few leadership elections, and then now it seems like it's becoming the hot topic across the board. So we need to be really, really strong on our stance. You know, we've got strong progressive policies on trans rights and really inclusive policies that we should champion, and if anything strengthen and continue to strengthen, you know, and we need to now use our platform. And even if we don't necessarily want to be talking about single issues in that sense, you know, if anyone's human rights are under threat, then we need to make sure that we are using our platform, because we do have a platform in the Green Party. It might not be as big as the, you know, the other two, and sorry, the Lib Dems I forget about, but you know, the other parties. But it's still a platform, an important platform to use correctly. So we need to be really clear on what our policies are, because our policies are there because our voters and our members mandated them in repeatedly. And sometimes people try and throw reckon amendments or whatever it might be, but our members continuously don't allow it to happen. So we've mandated, even through leadership elections, that, you know, majority wise as a party, we believe that trans rights are human rights. We believe trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary identities are valid and exist. So we need to champion that, you know, and we need to be quite clear in what we'll do in the opposite, you know, and where our line is on what can, I know it's very difficult, the terminology, what may be perceived as a genuine inquisitive questions around trying to understand and grow, or where do we just draw the line now and say we're not accepting level of transphobia anymore within this party, and that's just a red line, because end of the day, it's been mandated in so much now that we have to live by them values, you know, and we have to make some tough decisions and make some tough calls. But you know, yeah, I think we should be really, really clear as a party on what we believe in. As a deputy leader, we're really, really clear that we champion these policies, we believe in these policies, and we believe that these rights are human rights. I think it's really important. And also, to be honest, I think we need to start really, really questioning people's motives as well. You know, I think maybe sometimes we'll let people off the hook a little bit and stuff, but I'm be honest, I'm getting to the end of my tether with it, you know, especially some of these men who will, I know, really cry that they're defending women's rights. That's all they care about, is defending women's rights. You know, they don't talk about any of the women's rights issue. You know, they're not talking about, there's so many women's rights issues, because unfortunately we do have all sorts of gender discrimination and institutional reasons. We live in a patriarchy, so there are so many reasons why women have it more difficult, or, you know, can be more financially insecure because of the systems that we have that were perpetuated. There's so many issues for women's safety. You know, we have the police last year, you know, being caught up in how many different various scandals is the wrong word, you know, but you know, with women, and there's so many genuine threats, you know, and things that we need to speak about, because women's issues are massive, you know. But yet these people who, I'm not saying everyone, but sometimes, you know, and a lot of the men you're speaking, like, we're here because we are fighting for women's rights. Don't talk about any other women's rights issue, you know. And whatever your concern may be, even I don't think they're correct. No one can genuinely believe that trans women are the biggest threat to women and women's rights, you know. And if you do, then I think you're completely living in a different world, because there are so many things, you know. I know when I was working organizing communities in temporary accommodation to fight for better conditions and change, it wasn't lost to me that every single person that I was dealing with in that temporary accommodation was a woman, because they're often the heads of the single parent households, you know, and then due to that, obviously have less financial security, more reliant on the welfare state, and are living in awful temporary accommodation, you know, 1-bedroom hostel rooms with their 3 children, you know, incredibly disproportionate amount of women who have to deal with that over men. They're not speaking about things like that, are they? So calling it out as well. I'm sick of it, to be honest with you, and I'm sure everyone else is. We stand for social justice, and yeah, I've had enough of people trying to make us stand for the things.
So you're right that this issue has dominated a lot of the previous hustings and conversations around this election and the previous one. So I am going to move on. And I have one serious question left before I move on to some slightly more flippant ones, which I like to end these interviews on. So the serious one is, this deputy leadership election, there are 4 candidates standing. The first candidate to announce was Zach Polanski. who many members will know, is a member of the London Assembly. And of the four candidates, I think most of you would argue had the highest profile going into this election. Now, some people who are, peripherally following what's been going on in the election campaign, who maybe have attended one or two hustings, seen what's the conversation on social media, looked through the candidate statements. I think a lot of them watching the election would think, well, Zach Polanski is obviously going to win. Why are those people wrong?
Good question, and you're right, and that almost convinced me. As I said, there were some reasons why I wasn't sure whether I was going to run. I've been considering it for some time. In fact, those who know me now consider it last year as well. Or the last election as well. So it's tough. Obviously, Zach has got an incredible platform, and I think he's done a very, very good job as an assembly member and supporting local parties. But it's absolutely not a dead rubber contest. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't spend my time so passionately speaking about the issues that I really care about and why I believe I'd be a very good next deputy leader of the Green Party. I think I very confidently said what I stand for and what I believe in. I definitely received enough messages of support to believe there is still a contest with this as well. And we all run on quite distinctly different platforms as well, so people have a choice, essentially, even if not all platforms I necessarily agree with, but we have different platforms. Even if mine and Zach's politics and policies in some ways can be relatively similar, we have different ideas of what we speak about as our main aim, is having either a stronger, better media presence, or my angle of I just want to be on the ground constantly, and that's and really showing people through grassroots activism and winning local social justice campaigns that will succeed for change. So there's various different platforms there. I also represent a very different type of politician. Okay, I've just hit 30 now, but I definitely feel I appeal to a younger audience as well. And I've done so much work engaging with the youth and championing youth politics and the youth voice. And people know that, and that's recognized among people involved in young politics. So I think I'm a distinctly different ticket to the others. And I think, in fairness, all four of us are quite distinct from each other as well. And with that, I think that breeds genuine choice. And with genuine choice, there's always going to be a contest. And I'm very confident that this is not a dead rubber at all. And I believe Zach doesn't think the same. And that's why he's continuing to work hard and push to get people to vote for him and finding more endorsements, because he's aware as well that this is a genuine contest. And I'm very glad that's the case. So hopefully, from people tuning into the hustings and listening to things like this interview, they realize that the candidates are genuine and can do this as well. I'd like to think, hopefully, I've taken a few people by surprise. I always say the worst things that could be done is underestimating, what I can do and what I can bring to people, bring to the community, bring to the party. And I think people are starting to see that and recognize that. I think it's been recognised with some of the electoral success I've had this year. Obviously, didn't get elected, but electoral success nonetheless, with reducing the massive vote margin in which we did. So, yeah, I think people can see that I'm a genuine contender, and we have four distinct different candidates, and this is a real election. So, yeah, hopefully I'm right.
So I promised I'd move on to some more flippant questions to finish on. The first of which is, who in the Green Party inspires you the most?
Oh, really good question. Maybe not so flippant. So it's just a nice one, that. To be honest with you, at the moment, there's so many fantastic people in the Green Party who really do inspire a lot that I do. People who have been really involved in the past, obviously, so even Majid, for example, I used to work with Majid back in the day, years and years ago, when I was in Sheffield, and I joined the party around a similar time. And I wasn't really doing that much at that point, I went to a few meetings, and as you get into it slowly and stuff, did a few Young Greens things. And then Majid just started smashing it, as a black immigrant, and all the things, if I think I've got barriers, and then someday that gave me a massive kick up the backside, maybe, to put it, for lack of a better word. And that was a massive inspiration to me. And that then makes me live through into what I do now. Seeing people similar to you doing things gives you faith that you can do it as well. And that's one of the reasons I decided to run as deputy leader, because I know, I'm not going to say there's tens of people looking up to you and things like that, but hopefully, one person of color looks up to one young person from a tricky upbringing, can see me, and they'll go, well, I can crack on, and I can get into politics too. So seeing that self-representation is very, very, very important, and that's really, a big thing behind everything that I do. and on a practical basis and day to day, you know, I'm running for deputy leader, and I am always and have been inspired so much for everything that Amelia's done over the last 8 years as well. You know, to the amount of local parties she has visited, the support she's given for my local campaigns, to be a deputy leader for 8 years and have essentially nothing but positive feedback from the people that you work with and that you engage with, you know, and that commitment to green values, to our cause and to getting Greens elected is great. And that's something that I'd want to continue and champion if I were to be the next deputy leader. So, you know, on a day-to-day practical basis of right now, definitely Amelia, you know, has always been there to offer me support in my election campaign as the deputy, even in, you know, election campaign that I had no chance of winning in 2019, just, you know, in our random MP seat in Hackney. So these things, being there, being present, make sure you're around for the people who voted for you is so important, and people who didn't vote for you, everyone you pie, you know, you're on for more.
So what is your favourite and your least favourite Green Party policy?
Oh, good question. So my favourite Green Party policy is our drug policy. In a bit of a tie with our policy on the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans, because I love that policy. It was so holistically made. You worked with the Stop the Manganese campaign. Check them out. Really, really good campaign. You've been campaigning on this for decades, you know. So it's really work with them and co-produce this policy. You know, this is what I mean, proper sharing power, giving power, these things. To do that really well, I love, you know, that policy is, and to be part of that, just love it. But our drug reform policy is something that we need to be championing so much more. That policy it will save lives, you know, and that's what's so important about this. You know, it's a public health issue. It's not a policing or law issue, you know, it's a public health issue. You know, our position as a Green Party, you know, we've seen often when we have policies that are really progressive and they work, and we speak about them enough that they're popular, they get taken, you know, by the parties. I would love for our drug policy to get taken from the other party, you know, and that happens if we speak about it, get the public behind it, and then they're behind it, you know. So yeah, I really love, yes, and it also the work that went into the drug policy, the dedication, you know, the doctors, the scientists, just everything, you know, to make sure that was so well thought out and implementable right now, because that's what we need to be doing as a party, is having policies that can be implemented tomorrow. That's because we want to be a party of government. So I guess for least favorite policy, I struggled with this answer yesterday, to be honest with you, in the hustings. I don't necessarily have, you know, a policy that I think this is awful. You know, I'm sure if I go through the ROPs and stuff, I'll find one. But that's one of the reasons I'm with this party. You know, I believe in our cause. You know, I really believe in our policies. I think we should champion them more, like I'm saying. I think there's no use having great progressive policies, like you say, on the transatlantic trafficking or incredible drug policies, if then we just write them down and stick on the website and never speak about them, you know. So that's, for me, if I have to choose least favorite policy, there's some things I think just need to have a bit more teeth and make them more implementable, you know. I was chatting a little bit about our foreign policy stuff yesterday. There's like a line in the policy around the Green Party would end our special relationship with the US, you know, and I mentioned this in the hustings yesterday, which is, of course, in principle, that makes sense. What does that actually mean? How's that implemented as a policy? You know, what does that mean, that we end a certain trade agreement? So yeah, I just think not necessarily a least favorite policy, but we need to make sure our policies are ready for us to be a party of government. That may be the criticism I'd have of our policies sometimes.
So what book has most informed and shaped your politics?
Oh, one book. That's tough. There's a few books that I've done it. Funnily, in my younger days, it'll be Chomsky. You know, to be fair, a lot of no. Most recently, I've been reading the works of Audre Lorde. Her fantastic poems, her fantastic essays, absolute inspiration and words that I try and live by every single day. Whether it's the fight for justice and remembering our fight for justice, the fact that the way she spoke about intersectionality without maybe using that phrase back in the 30s, 40s, you know, is brilliant. And even yesterday, actually, I was having a bit of, you know, I've had a tough time, but things a bit overwhelming sometimes. I've just done 2 back-to-back local elections. I'm doing the deputy leadership election. I'm a bit tired. And there was a quote, if I get it right, in one of her poems yesterday, which was, self-care is not an act of self-indulgence. It's an act of self-preservation. And that in itself is an act of political warfare. You know, and that sat with me as well. And if I, after this deputy leadership election, don't win, you know, but you know, could do, I will take a moment to do a bit of self-care and remind myself that in itself is an act of political warfare. So radical self-care, yeah, all about that. And that's probably been the book that's really getting me at the moment.
Viewers should definitely read both Chomsky and Audre Lorde, absolutely for sure. My final question for you is, what qualities do you admire in the other candidates for deputy leader?
Like individually, one by one, or just like in a general?
One by one. Let's go one by one.
Okay. So that's a great question. I look forward to hearing the others. I'll start with Zach. What qualities was it? Do we? Yeah, okay. I mean, Zach's dedicated to the cause. I won't deny that at all. Yeah, I think his genuine dedication to getting Greens elected. Even if I'm doing myself a disservice saying that, but I'm a genuine person. I'm not going to just say something negative about somebody for the sake of it. And I think that's something that inspires me too. And we can be inspired by the people that we compete against because we're all still part of the same party too. So yeah, that definitely shining quality. With Shara, the self-belief. I think whether or not you can believe in various different things or agree with various different things. I guess maybe it's good to have conviction in what you believe your values are or your beliefs and stick to them proudly. So whether or not I completely disagree with a number of them, there's conviction in your beliefs, and fair enough. And with Nick, he's just so young. I didn't realize as well as a young Green to put yourself up for this kind of thing twice, within a couple of year period. It takes some bravery to do so. So yeah, certainly that.
Thank you so much, Tyrone. I found this conversation absolutely fascinating, and I hope our viewers have too. Where can people find out more about your campaign?
So get on Twitter. Have a look on Twitter. Follow me, eco-Ty, tyronescott.co.uk as well. I'm on Facebook, Ty Green Party, but Twitter and the website are probably the best places to keep abreast of the campaign. Or you can email me as well through the website too.
Brilliant. Well, thank you to everyone who has been watching. I have a few final things to let you know before I let you all leave. The first of them, I said at the beginning, I'll say it again now. Please do scroll down and hit that subscribe button. If you've watched the last 45 minutes of our conversation, you clearly have enjoyed it. So therefore you should subscribe and you'll miss none of the other interviews we're putting out with the other deputy leadership candidates. We have confirmed an interview with Zach Polanski. I'm still waiting for the other two candidates to confirm, but you will get all of that in your notifications if you hit subscribe. So do that right now. The second thing I want to let you know is that it may surprise you, but Bright Green does not have the backing of billionaires or big business. We rely solely on the kind and generous contributions of people just like you. So if you are able to, please do head to bright-green.org/donate and set up a regular donation, and it will mean that we can keep putting out videos like this, keep all the coverage and analysis and news pieces and commentary that we put on our website, and fund the future of independent radical media. And the final thing is just, we've been talking for 45 minutes. I'm sure there's plenty in there that you've agreed with. There may well be things in there that you may have disagreed with. Let us know what you think in the comments down below and keep the conversation going there. So that's all from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very, very soon.